obviously there are reactionary attitudes, and I think that to sort of infer that immigrants are bringing in these sort of alien negative values into British society is to somehow miss out on the fact that actually what British values are the interaction between outside influences and the ideas and beliefs which currently prevail. Sure. And in fact that brings a richness to our society.
Look, I mean, nobody's denying the richness that immigrants bring to society, but it's also true to say that just because we say, oh well, this is your point of view, you're entitled to it, that's fine. In a tolerant and open society you should have that. But it becomes very difficult, and I think this occurs particularly with homosexuality in the West. It is particularly difficult when you get to a stage where you say that you have to be tolerant of people who are intolerant to you.
Well, that is something that you have to reconcile as a society in which you have different perspectives. These are no longer out.
This series of the big questions. A poll conducted for us by Comres found that 83% of the 1,000 adults surveyed believe that Britain is in moral decline. Can immigration make Britain more moral? Christina Adoni, I mean, this judge was talking about the cancer of society that is family breakdown, and what is needed maybe is a sort of injection of values. He didn't say this, but what do you think about the contention that maybe some of the moral values, the family values, brought here by immigrants can save us from ourselves?
I think that's a very, very interesting theory, and I think absolutely so. You know, we've been taught since 2007, since July 2007, that the immigrant community is basically a breeding ground for terrorism. Actually, I think it's a breeding ground for a fantastic value system. And when you look at where these immigrants come from, they usually come from cultures where self-sacrifice is still big. And although they come here for self-fulfillment, they manage to retain that sense of, children come first, family's all important, me, myself, and I is not at the very center.
I believe in marriage, mother, father, children, stay together.
Yes, yes, but it's not just marriage. It's about discipline. It's about hard work. Yeah. They come from Poland, from Bangladesh, from Ghana, and they still really believe that although they must make it, they want to keep their values intact.
Douglas Murray from the Centre for Social Cohesion. This is what we need.
Well, it's good to be talking about immigration not just in terms of economics, which is what tends to happen. There's another thing, though, is that whatever Christina says about the impact of and the feelings of new immigrants, I have to say I tend to be slightly worried when I hear people like the judges talking about this, because I sense, I think a lot of other people do, that what we're talking about are the most reactionary views of all kinds of religions, the most reactionary opinions about the family, things actually that people in this country are generally quite tolerant about.
Such as?
Well, I mean, things like marriage, things like homosexuality, which when a judge nods to the family values of, for instance, Islam in this country, he could do so, but he's also nodding to a very reactionary religion in relation to, say, homosexuality.
Miriam, we'll bring you in here, I think is an appropriate point, a convert. When you hear that, what about the fears that many have about the backwards social attitudes of, for example, Islam, that people point to, the attitude to women, the attitude to gays, forced marriages, all those things that concern people?
Well, I certainly think that, one has to distinguish between, the faith as an ideal and how it's practiced within the community, and I'm not the first person to say that, but, obviously there are reactionary attitudes, and I think that to sort of infer that immigrants are bringing in these sort of alien negative values into British society is to somehow miss out on the fact that actually what British values are the interaction between outside influences and the ideas and beliefs which currently prevail. Sure. And in fact that brings a richness to our society.
Look, I mean, nobody's denying the richness that immigrants bring to society, but it's also true to say that just because we say, oh well, this is your point of view, you're entitled to it, that's fine. In a tolerant and open society you should have that. But it becomes very difficult, and I think this occurs particularly with homosexuality in the West. It is particularly difficult when you get to a stage where you say that you have to be tolerant of people who are intolerant to you.
Well, that is something that you have to reconcile as a society in which you have different perspectives. These are no longer outside perspectives. What you need to understand, and what I think is kind of an odd way of conceptualizing this debate, is these ideas coming from the outside. You have people within the society that may not approve of homosexuality.
There are ideas, I suppose, Miriam, that could possibly bolster some indigenous ideas already here. People who maybe feel they are social conservatives but are being marginalised in our society.
Possibly.
And they may find succour from these people coming in.
Possibly, or perhaps these are issues that we as a British society need to rethink. Maybe these are ideas that we need to thrash out and decide where we actually stand on. These are British attitudes. I don't really like the idea of conceptualising them as ideas that come from the outside. There are people within Britain that are British that do hold these ideas, and to simply brush them away as the ideas of a minority from the outside is to not really give credit to them.
Keith thought it was pretty touching. Both of you, I see, very, very keen to come in. I don't know which you're going to choose. Peter first. Go on, Peter Tatchell.
I think we should be very careful about generalising. Immigrant communities come with lots of different backgrounds, different ideas, different influences, some cultural, some religious.
Is there a danger of a step back to a place that we've escaped from socially, with some of the values that are being brought in?
I think that is true amongst some immigrants. You know, look at the Polish immigrants who are coming here. A lot of them bring a very, very conservative, hardline Catholicism, which is very anti-woman, very anti-gay. We see other sections of immigrant communities who condone or endorse female genital mutilation, forced marriages, domestic violence, because I think men should rule the house and are justified to abuse their women if they're disobedient. We also see honour killing of women and gay people in this country in small numbers, but nevertheless in unacceptable numbers amongst some sections of immigrant communities. So I think there are some bad attitudes, but many immigrants do bring positive values and do enrich our society.
I want to address the bad attitudes, then I'll come to Betty. And Keith, I've got you in mind, don't worry. Miriam?
Yeah, no, I think you're going to have a hard time finding people that condone honour killings, that condone female genital mutilation, etc., etc. I mean, we can bring out all of these sort of pretty marginal, experiences that people have. But at the end of the day, these are minority experiences, and the vast majority of people these are not the issues that affect us, that affect Muslims and other minorities within this country.
But I don't think they are as little as that. The forced marriage, the female genital mutilation, honour killings. The problem is because they are regarded as culturally sensitive, even though we've got laws against them, they're not being properly policed. The social care workers, the police, they're frightened to touch them.
Are we in danger of accentuating...
There has not been one FGM prosecution in this country.
Aren't we in danger of rather accentuating the negative?
My goodness, how much more negative can you get for the poor people that are affected that we're actually betraying? We're not looking after them.
But
it's a shocking thing that's happening.
Absolutely nobody is defending these things. You bring to me a voice that's defending female genital mutilation in this country, and I will accept that view.
Okay, Betty.
So the question being tossed around here is, do immigrants make Britain more moral? And listen, for the majority, 99% of the immigrants that are in any society, whether or not they make them moral or immoral, that's a question, to be taken a look at, and to basically see in what types of things you're talking about morality. Because there's different things for morality. Are we talking sexual morality? Are we talking social morality? Are we talking food morality? Are we talking vices like gambling and alcohol and, drugs, those kind of things? Are we going to talk about that as being moral or immoral? Family, dating, all kinds of things. In some cultures, dating is looked as upon immoral. In other cultures, dating is looked upon moral. Is it coming from a religious aspect? Now, I think the way it should be broken down is that if there's a religion or a type of group of people, whether they're immigrants or non-immigrants, if they're doing something in the name of something, whether it's religion or whether it's the idea that they have or it's the value system, whatever they have, if that is harming someone, a child, another person, especially those that are under the care of adults, then I don't care what idea that is, whether it's religious, whether it's, not religious, that idea must not be allowed to perpetuate because you're harming someone. And those have to be taken into consideration. Now, Peter Thatcher, he mentioned some of those things, for example, where in case of some immigrant societies, where it's very misogynistic, where they were talking about female genital mutilation, which is actually coming, a lot of that is within the African subcontinent. There's nothing religious about it. It's that it's just being done because of cultural reasons that have just been passed down for hundreds of years or, throughout millennia. And they just do it because that's the way it was done. Men are the dominant over there, and they just continue to do this harmful procedure to women. So it just begs the question again, in terms of all of that, thinking, where do you want to talk about morals, and where does that line of morals go? Where does it come right up to immorality? But one man's morality is another man's immorality, and vice versa. One person's immorality is another person's morality. I mean, in terms of thinking, somebody could say, well, I don't think that's immoral. And then I think that's moral. And vice versa. Anyways, let's continue with this interesting debate.
You're a charismatic evangelical. Are we in the sort of moral decline that needs an infusion of morals from elsewhere?
No. England, from the onset, were the ones that went to different countries. They went out and they brought good things to countries that didn't even know about electricity. They went into poor countries, Africa, many different educated people. Now, because of wars, because of persecution, different people are coming in here. And instead of us collaborating, people want to actually impose their ideas in this country. What
about the attitudes to gays, for example, that
I personally don't think homosexuality is a good thing. That's my belief, being a Christian. I don't think two men should sleep together or two women should sleep together, and I stand by that. What I believe in is obviously coming here, collaborating. Before gay people came out and women, this country did not tolerate that.
Was that a better time?
I believe it was a better time. Obviously, we need to move on. We need to move on to embrace change. And obviously, immigrants coming in, we taught by the British then when you came in, but from the Bible, that these things are not right. It's not good.
The moral mix is Peter.
I would defend Betty's right to hold those views.
Well,
they're her conscientious views. Where I would object is the way in which people like Betty, some people like Betty, seek to impose her morality on everyone else through the law of the land. So they want to make their morality the legal morality that binds us all.
Now, let me answer that.
One second, let Betty first, then Councillor Alan Craig, and then we'll come to the panel.
I do strongly believe you will not be sitting here if you didn't have a mother. A man and a woman, you were given birth to by a woman, the family together. And so by then, I do believe clearly that being a homosexual is not a good thing. It's your choice. You were not forced to be homosexual.
What's wrong, Keith?
I think that it...
Now, this lady comes out. Now, she's not Muslim. She's not Jewish. She's not Hindu or Buddhist or Taoist or whatever. She's a Pentecostal evangelist. And she's giving her viewpoint. Obviously, she's an immigrant. And in her belief, homosexuality, she doesn't agree with that. Now, whether or not you have that belief, as Peter Thatcher basically said there, you can hold that belief that you are either, that you agree with homosexuality, you don't agree with homosexuality. That's a belief, that's an opinion that you have. What Peter is talking about is where the theocratic part comes inside, is that if people start to force that opinion outside of yourself, basically. You want to think that way, you want to raise your family, you want to do it, in your church and all that. That is up to you, because that is your your religious teaching. Now, you can come out with your opinion like she did and basically say, I am against it. Okay, fine. That's what she said. You may have a differing opinion. You may say, I don't like your opinion. I think your opinion is backward. I don't think that there's any such thing as religion. There's no such thing as a God. You're just getting this out of a book. Some person just preached to it thousands of years ago, and you just take it on faith, blah, 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 blah. Whatever that is, whatever it may be. But as long as you keep that opinion literally sort of, to yourself, you're not imposing that opinion will onto people, that's where the line, definitely should be drawn. And that should be the other way too. If there are people that are on the side for LGBT or gay rights or whatever, okay, fine. But that doesn't mean that they've got to force that issue the other way either. There has to be a balance inside there. Now, I'm not talking about equal rights for gays and equal rights for lesbians and equal rights for... I'm not talking about the equal rights issue. I'm just talking about the issue of whether or not people think that that type of lifestyle choice that someone makes, if being of the opinion, that's a different story. But to force that lifestyle change and say, oh, you've got to adopt that same lifestyle, because that can go both ways. There's no way that the LGBTQ community should be saying that straight people need to adopt the ways of them, and straight people should not be of the opinion that gay people, LGBTQs, should be, in terms of doing it for them as well. So that's what we're basically saying in terms of that. Anyways, let's continue.
It's not a choice for people. My goodness, the amount of oppression there's been of gay people to suggest that they do it because they want to do it is just stupid. We all know better than that.
Mr. Masonic, is there a danger that with many of the social conservative attitudes coming into this country, it's not going to be morally good for us, it's going to take us back to a place that some argue we've moved on from?
That isn't my experience. Most of my urban congregations now are predominantly Afro-Caribbean. And obviously they come in with very different values from West Africa or the Caribbean. And sometimes to
very different values from the Guardian and the Independent as well.
Different values from one another in terms of child upbringing, family life, and yet we're all kind of sharing the same church. Now what I'm discerning, in fact, is that they are also influenced by British values, including British values of tolerance, and the campaigning, if you like, from a more conservative direction is not actually coming from those people. It's coming more from white conservative British. And so in a sense we're influencing one another. And actually from the Church of England we're doing very well out of it, because we've got somebody like Johnson Tamu, the Archbishop of York, who brings that energy and that passion, but also brings a great deal of intelligence. So we're winning.
Let's get some views from the audience as well. Gentleman back there with the red shirt. Yeah, go on.
Hi, we've been talking about sort of morality and stuff, but in terms of the sort of big stories in the news, in terms of moral action, they've been sort of Shannon Matthews and all the sort of teenage killings. What relevance does immigration have to that? And that's what people seem to be most concerned about when they're talking about moral decline. They're talking about these stories, but where's immigration got a point in that?
Immigration, the argument is that there's many of the people coming in have a sort of a stronger moral family background, and they would bolster those values within this country. People talk, Maria, about the Poles, don't they? You came from Poland, well, when, 3 or 4 years ago?
3.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And well, I think that I would like to make any simplistic statement about this, but I think that it should be the whole moral decline needs to be approached from at least a few angles. Well, to start with, the immigrants coming to Britain, I think are very well aware of the fact that the British society was built on the values such as democracy, freedom, respect, tolerance. And we are guests here, actually, and we want to learn, and we also want to contribute.
Polish immigration, for example, Douglas Murray.
Well, I just wanted to say, I mean, the polling people and asking them if they sense moral decline, I don't think you could ever take a poll anywhere at any point in our history where people thought we were in moral ascent. It just doesn't happen. Everything's always getting worse. That's the nature of human feeling.
Yeah. So, Richard Dawkins, are you worried at all by some of the social attitudes that come into this country?
I'm worried about some of the social attitudes I've heard in this hall tonight.
This morning?
Sorry, this morning. It's all dark in here. I'm worried when somebody sitting next to a well-known gay activist says, "I believe that you had a mother," and gets a round of applause. Now, that's bigotry. And I'm worried about that.
Well, that was an interesting discussion there. Everybody getting their voices in, their opinions in, from secularists to religious people to, audience members, all giving their point of view. So we appreciate you taking the time to take a look at our video. And what we'd like to do basically is let you know, folks, that we really like bringing this content to you. If you like the content, you like our analysis, we'd certainly love for you to go ahead and sign up, subscribe to the channel, like, share, hit that button. You all know what to do. Check out our little videos above and below, those video links. I'll leave you with my final thought, which is, when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, you're wrong. Until next time, folks, this is the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I'm your host, Dr. Nasir. And when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, you're wrong. Take care and stay safe.